This is the air I breathe. This is the air I breathe.
Grace, would you pray with me? Father, in this moment, let us settle down, Lord. Calm us. I don't know if people were busy this weekend or if they rested, and wherever they're at, God, I just pray that you would give us a moment to pause and really acknowledge who you are and what you are and all you are. God, sometimes we just get so wrapped up in the busyness of life that we neglect to recognize our God. So in this moment, God, calm us, still us. Let our souls have rest for a few moments, God, to just recognize you and to meet with you, God. I pray that you would reach out and embrace us this morning, God, that you would just wrap your arms around us and let us feel your presence, God, in a tangible way. And God, for all the Kendras of the world, I just pray that you'll send one of us to her, to them, that they might know you, God, that they might know there's a God in heaven who loves them, who loved them before the world was created, and who will love them long after. And God, I pray that you would give us the words, the conviction, the courage, the boldness, the wisdom, the sensitivity, the discernment to know what to say and when to say it and how to say it. God, I guess what I'm asking is that we would just be empty vessels through which the Holy Spirit could do his work. Your scripture tells us that your own Spirit resides inside of us, God, and that makes us very, very powerful, not to our glory, but to yours. And so, God, let your Holy Spirit work through us. We love you and we praise you. In Jesus' name.
Please, everybody, make yourself home today. Great to see you guys. Are you ready to be in the house of God yet? All right. It's important. It's impossible to be here without being here. And so I'm glad that you are here, and hopefully you're that we're all sensitive to what God's got going on for us today. I told you last week we're going to be sharing an announcement today, and so I wanted to do that with you. Over the course of the last probably 6 months to a year, we've been doing some behind-the-scenes activity, trying to figure out, is there a feasibility and a sensibility to multiplying ourselves? Really, we have all the resources, we have all the people here. It would not cost us one extra dime to multiply how many opportunities we offer on Sunday mornings to come to church. And so we've been having these conversations with our ministry leaders. Obviously, they're the ones that are putting it on the ground, trying to make it happen. They're the ones whose work level is intensified by doing it. Spoke with our wisdom council and with our elders and tried to figure out, does this make sense with our mission? Is this something we should do? Is this the best expending of our energy? Because we believe Sunday morning is sacred. We believe it's critical. We believe every single person on the planet needs to be in church. A part of a church, but in church. There's a Sabbath worship experience for every single person. There's not a person that's ever been born that this does not apply to. And so that's one of our driving missions. And so we said, does this fit in with, given all the things that we're talking about, our mission, our ministry leaders are saying we can do it. We have a group of people. We did a little bit of a survey here at the end of September among people. Would you be willing to pioneer an early service? And we got a group of people who said, hey, we'd be willing to do that. But the most important group of people of all that we're hoping, and why we're going to be having a service starting in the 2nd of February, the very first Sunday of February, the group of people who have no voice on the survey are the people we're hoping to connect to. People who don't go to church. You might be like, well, hey, I love my 10:30 service. You're in great shape. In fact, we're going to bonus you something. You have no obligation whatsoever. Hey, this is the service that works just right for you. We're going to bonus you something. We're going to give you 15 extra minutes of sleep moving forward. From the 2nd of February on, we're going to have a service at 10:45 for you. So you get to sleep in a little bit longer, come in a little bit earlier, whatever it might be for you. We're going to be offering a 9 o'clock service on February the 2nd and moving forward. We're going to be doing it as a pilot. So basically from the 2nd of February all the way to the Sunday before Memorial Weekend, we're going to see, does this really work? Will people come to church? I know for a personal fact that there's a good number of people who don't come to church but would. They've had the conversation with me. And so you might be the person that say, hey, I want to pioneer this thing, I want to be a part of that. You might be like, no, but I'll pray for it. And we would love for you to do that. We need to expand the ability to minister to Grace Fellowship Church does expand their ability to minister to people in our community. And so we're going to be offering that coming forward. We got some work, we're going to be doing some legwork behind the scenes ministry-wise. We'll be announcing it. We're hoping that you'll think about inviting people to church. And some people might say, well, wait a minute, hold on. But we like kind of the cozy feel that we've got right now. We love the people that we have in the church. And what happens if some of these people here that I love seeing every Sunday start going to the 9 o'clock service? I've got a great way to do that. There are a world full of Kendras that can sit right next to you. All it is saying, hey, you need to go to church, come with me. Okay. Fill the church up. That's our call, that's our mission, to connect people to Christ and to connect them to his people. And so that's what's going on. That's the announcement of what's coming up. And I wanted to give you a little bit of a first taste of that and begin preparing yourself. We'll obviously intensify some of the things we're going to do ministry-wise, and even connecting you to opportunities. We'd love to hear even more from you on whether you'd be willing to be a pioneer of our 9 a.m. service. And basically, we're starting it on February the 2nd. We're going to kind of pull a Bill Murray Groundhog Day. We're going to keep that spirit of multiplying out services, what we're going to be doing 9 o'clock and 10:45. So that's the announcement. Now let's preach. There are a lot of people who struggle going through the transitions of life. A lot of people are major resistors. Most of us are, in fact, major resistors of change altogether. How many of you guys are change resistors? I don't like it. I prefer things being as they are. Raise your hand. I know you are, Pat. You didn't raise your hand, but it's because you're resisting the change and moving your hand from here to there. In fact, half of any room, this is a statistical fact, half of any room, any job site you're on, any classroom, any church, or any nation resist, if not altogether fight, change. It's true. You can see a bell curve up on the screen. I'm going to have Eric put it up for you. This is what is known as the Rogers diffusion of innovation. You may have seen it in at least maybe quoted some of the statistics, maybe you've seen something like this in life. This describes the 5 different kind of groups that deal with change of any kind. The front-end people are what they call the innovators. Rogers calls the next group the early adopters. And then you see 2 gigantic groups in the middle of the bell curve. There's the early majority. Can you give that back to us real quick? Give me back that, there you go. The early majority and then the late majority. This is the overwhelming amount of people, but they don't respond immediately. And then the last one, that to me it may be a little bit negative sounding, but it's what he calls the laggards. These are the 5 groups. Well, the back half, you can give me that screen now, the back half of this totals 50%. People who will either be very resistant to it or will in fact change. They may even, at some point, the laggards, they may get along with it, but they don't like it. Okay, so that's the general breed of cat that may go on. So over half of any person, any room, any situation you're in, Thanksgiving dinner, you sat across from these kinds of people. People who are really, really ready to change, but a great deal of people who are not like that. At least that's not how they tick. That's not the way they feel like they're made. So what I want to do, I want to have a little bit of fun here. I'd like you to stand today. Change. John, really? I'd rather sit. Okay, well, we're going to just play along with me if we could. How many of you, I want you to stand, this is true of you, how many of you own a TV? Stand up. How many of you own a TV? If it's in your house, you may not have purchased it, but you have a house in which a TV exists. All right, now you sit down. Thank you. Good, good. If you do not own a TV in your house, would you stand? Wow. Real changers. 99% of Americans' homes are filled with TVs. In fact, well over almost 70% of people have 3 TVs in their homes. Don't tell me we're poor, right? Don't tell me we're poor. But overwhelming majority, in fact, 100% of us all have televisions. How many of you have cable or satellite television? Would you stand? How many of you have cable or satellite? So you pay for your TV, okay? You sit down. How many of you don't pay for your TV? You don't have cable or satellite. All right. So we're starting to get a little sense of things here. A little different breakdown. You all have not quite bought into the change, or you said, well, I have other reasoning. We can talk about what that might be. Okay. How many of you have a smartphone? Whatever they call it, a smartphone. Would you stand? You got a smartphone. Okay. Starting to see the bell curve come alive. Have a smartphone. You can sit down. How many of you have a phone, but it's only for calling people? It's got the big numbers, boop, 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 boop. I have a cell phone, but it's only for calling people. Let's look at you. I don't have a smartphone.
Can you text on it?
What's that?
Can you text with it?
No, not letting you text. So you're a smartphone person. Oh, we got some people who are, they're late majority people just sitting there. All right, thank you, you can sit down. How many of you only make a phone call from your landline at home? Stand up, anybody? All right. A little bit of change in that. We all have TVs. Most of us have cable. These other things start to come along. Why? Some things have been around for longer than others. And our adoption of those things some people take time, right? Well, I want to ask you another question. I want you to turn to the person next to you. All right? Would you give me back, you got that full screen again? Again, I'm sorry if it's light and hard to read from the back. The innovators, the people who immediately grab something up. They're the first in line on Christmas to buy the brand new whatever. You got early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. I want you to turn to the person next to you, and I want you to tell them what you believe is the group you're in. And then I want you to take 10 seconds and tell them why. Turn to the person next to you and tell them what you are.
Yeah, I think I'm like
early minority.
it took a while. Regular.
I did find the smartphone. I just got one.
I'll take all the good stuff that I like.
Innovator, early adopter, early majority, late majority, or laggard.
Super. I think you're over here.
Okay, how many of you did not speak at all during that exercise at all? How many of you didn't do it? I know who you are. You were the laggard. All right, okay, well here's one extra exercise. I really love to introduce two groups of people. How many of you said, I'm an innovator? I'm one of those first 2.5%. Stand up. I'm a 2.5% person. I get the first everything. Oh my Lord, we need more innovators in this church. Somebody, please. Nobody's an innovator. I'm going to innovate something for you, son. No innovators. No one said they're an innovator. Well, then stand up. You deserve it. Stand up. No, keep standing. I need to introduce you to somebody. How many of you self-describe? No, I need you to stand up. Really, I do. I need you to stand up. How many of you describe yourselves as laggards? Stand up. You are the back. 16%. I'd like to introduce you to yin and yang right now. You all need to meet each other. All right? You all need to meet each other. Some things we don't immediately adopt. Thank you guys so much for participating in the exercise. We have some people who would rather still, they don't want to use a cell phone, they don't want a smartphone. In fact, they would rather just fill the old school rotary dial. You guys miss that? I mean, I wish they had a cell phone that had that quality on it, though. Maybe kind of a hybrid of having all those things. Some people would rather just do it the way they've always done it. Is that a healthy way to live? No, it's not. Any more than it's healthy to say, I'm going to try everything I get that comes in front of me, right? There's some place, and I'm not saying it just because the people in the middle are the smart ones. I'm saying there's some place in the middle that we have to be able to adopt change, transition, growing. What am I getting at? Change is hard. Most people don't like it, and most people don't do it. Most of us don't like it to some degree or another. Even innovators choose to be innovative about one thing, but not about another. And usually if it has some pain for them, they will not adopt that idea. But it's natural. Growing, changing, transitioning, it's natural and it's an important part of life. And especially as we're going to see today, it's important and natural to a relationship with God. He will call us to change from here to there. There's going to be a change involved. Basically, nobody should be at a baby level, stay a baby their whole life. Think of that physically, what would be going on there if we all stayed babies. Transitioning to the next stage of growth is critical for anything that's alive, anything that's healthy. So instead of thinking of things as change, okay, the whole bell curve idea there, that's usually resistant to a word, which is an idea, which is change. If I asked you, are you resistant to transitioning? It'd be a different question. Most of us resist change because we don't know what it is. But transitioning to what's healthy and what's best, no, that's a different question. And I think we begin in life, not as a church, not that we're multiplying services, not that we'll do something new 5 years from now or 10 years from now. That's not the innovations we're talking about. We're talking about spiritual transition from here to there. If we don't have that as a part of our DNA, then there's something unhealthy in us. as a person, or a family, or as a church. And these transitions will begin to define us. So we're going to see this today. And it's in our responsiveness to it, our responsiveness to change, or our resistance of it, that will define the manner of person that we are. We begin to discover our identity in those things. We begin to discover who we really are, our identity. So, if you have a Bible, I want you to open to Joshua chapter 4. December and then the first Sunday of January mark our last couple of Sundays in this trilogy we've been working on for the last almost 2 years. Working from Genesis all the way now into Joshua. And we're getting towards the end of it. And we're going to find our story begin today in Joshua chapter 4. And what we're going to discover there is Israel, well, Israel is a nation. And Joshua, this guy that we've heard more and more about as we've read, Joshua is a person. Joshua is a leader. They're getting ready to encounter major, defining transitions. That if they don't do them, then they're not going to be Israel. Then they're not going to be Joshua. It's interesting if you think about it. Who doesn't have a book? The number one character that seems to be throughout, he wrote the books. A lot of the story is recorded by him. He brings it to our attention to the world. Moses has no book. You know who does? Joshua. He's willing to make some transitions that even Moses was not willing or not able to do. So I want you to, just as a recollection, last Sunday we crossed the Jordan River with Israel, remember? And God had held the waters back. And so the north side of the river, as it's coming south, is being held up. The south side works its way out, and now it's walking across on dry land. They cross over to the west side of the Jordan River. So they're now on the promised land side of the Jordan. But frankly, the promises of God can't really come true. They're in the promised land. But the promises of God can't really come true until we're weaned off of the things outside of the promises. And I want you to be saturated in that idea for just a second. Because a lot of us want to be on both sides of the Jordan sometimes. I love that I can have churchy stuff and Christian-y stuff. I love having that. It makes me feel better when I do this stuff over here. I love having this stuff, but I also like having my feet on the east side of the Jordan, kind of the old things and the way that I've always done it, the way I've always thought of it. And we like having our feet on both sides of a miracle, and that's not possible. Not healthy, at least. And so God gets them onto the promised land side of the Jordan River, but he needs to wean them off of these things that they had outside of the land of promise, and then transition them into the way they should think and the way they should live going forward. Joshua 4, verse 12. It says, the armed warriors from the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh led the Israelites across the Jordan. They were the first to go, just as Moses had directed. These armed men, about 40,000 strong, were ready for battle, and the Lord was with them as they crossed over to the plains of Jericho. That day, the Lord made Joshua a great leader in the eyes of all the Israelites. This is really kind of a continuation of last week's story. We're getting the tail end description as the Israelites cross over and they see the water held back and they see Joshua's resolve. They see something in him that they admire, that Joshua has not yet even fully earned or fully realized inside himself yet. But they begin to see him as a person like Moses. So that day the Lord made Joshua a great leader in the eyes of all the Israelites. And for the rest of his life they revered him as much as they had revered Moses. Look to verse 19. The people crossed the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month. Then they camped at Gilgal, just east of Jericho. For lack of putting a map up on the screen for you, or if you've never heard of Gilgal before, you've heard of Jericho and its walls, right? You've heard probably the Jordan River, but Gilgal is kind of it's an unknown to most of us. Gilgal is an exciting but a very, very stressful place to be in life. Basically what I'm saying is we don't want to live there long. This is a place of launching. It's a place of transition for Israel and for Joshua. For the Israelites, it was just west of the Jordan, that legendary river that they had heard their whole lives. Only 2 people had come from Egypt at this point. Who remembers who those 2 people are? Joshua and Caleb. Everybody else had been born in the wilderness. Everyone else who had been alive when they were in Egypt had passed away in the desert. And so there's just 2 people who know what life on the other side of the Red Sea looked like, what life in slavery looked like. There's just 2 people who now cross over the river. They're the only people who have a sense of that, what's going on before. But they're not just west of there, but they're east of that first major battle, just a few miles away from that battle, what we call Jericho. It's also the place that we talked about last week, this Gilgal, where Israel had stacked those 12 big stones. It was their zikaron, remember? We talked about that. People kind of latched onto that idea. As I was talking to people after church, that idea of the zikaron. This is where that is Gilgal. That physical reminder of their relationship with God. They need to go back and they need to remind themselves. They need to go back and they need to tell their children the story. Here's how God worked. I need to be reminded of that. It defines me, these moments. But Gilgal is this in-between place. It's the in-between place. It's exciting, but it's dangerous. You don't want to live there very long. It's not exactly the place they're going, but it's further than they've ever been before. It's exciting, but it's dangerous. It's also a place they just can't sit down and act satisfied. Technically, they are in the promised land. Technically, they're there, but they can't just sit down and be satisfied that they're technically in the land of promise. It would be similar to being strapped into a fueled-up rocket. Sitting on top of that rocket, right? But just staying on the launch pad. That's exactly what it would be. It's exciting, but it's dangerous to be there very long. You only get to be an astronaut if you get into space. You don't get to be an astronaut just because you sat inside a rocket. It's interesting what God and Joshua do to mark this. So they've put the stones there, and they're just steps away from this. And God and Joshua decide there are other things that need to happen before they go and they occupy the land of promise. From this Gilgal launching pad stage of their moving into the promise. Amazingly, you know what they don't do? The moment they get over in there, into the land of promise, you know what they don't do? They don't pat anybody on the back. They don't give out participation trophies or little medals and say, "Great job, Junior." They don't do any of that. They get themselves thinking about what's supposed to happen. And so God and Joshua decide there's a couple things they need to do. 3 things in particular that happen. 2 of them are very tough, and you're going to see why in a moment. 2 of them are very tough, and the third thing is something that 99% of them had never done before in their life. Look at chapter 5, verse 2. At that time, the Lord told Joshua, "Make flint knives and circumcise the second generation of Israelites." So Joshua made flint knives and circumcised the entire male population of Israel at Gibeah Ha-Alaroth. Now, that's just a really big name. Do you want to know what the name of this thing means?